Today, I've got a franchise founder, somebody who has done over $150 million worth of sales in the home services space.
We actually invented it. We've got 2 patents on it. This is none of that. This is really a true alternative to replacement. In 2016, we were actually on Dragon's Den. So that's the I don't know if you're
that's like the Shark Tank of Canada.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Exactly. We actually made history on the show. So I pitched within 5 minutes. I got a deal from almost everybody. We sold out the entire country within 24 hours.
All of Canada.
All of Canada. So.
That's crazy.
I'll always remember this day. My bookkeeper came up to me and she's like, I don't know if we're gonna make payroll. It's like, well, we're in the hole, like almost $1 million.
Whoa.
I'm like, what?
I have got Carmelo Marsala. What's up, man?
What's up, man? How's it going?
Good, good. So, I've had a few franchise guys here on the show. One of the guys was Jeff Duden, who you mutually know as well, and he does some home service stuff. And when I heard about your story and what you guys are doing, especially in real estate, it was like actually really exciting to hear about. So give me some background about what the company does, and then we'll get into kind of how you got to this point.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah. Well, it's funny. I actually was doing house flipping too. And often we would, change doors or windows. And one time I saw a new door come in and it was already painted. And I said, well, why can't we just spray these on site? And, started thinking about it. And that's kind of how the idea came to mind is, why can't we spray these the same way that they come brand new in a factory? Let's try to do that on site. So I don't know how much you want to get into that, but that's kind of how the idea, that aha moment started. And then we started, using that same logic for all the other services that we do.
Yeah. So your company's called SprayNet.
Yep.
And what exactly do you do?
So we basically spray exterior sidings. We stain brick, vinyl windows, garage doors. We really started in the exterior space. Now we do kitchen cabinets too. And we actually just launched a third product for roofs. So we've managed to liquefy a roof and we're able to actually give it a new layer of granules without having to replace it.
Whoa. So, okay, tell me about the roof. That's really interesting. Yeah. Does this make the roof last longer? Does it replace it? What does that mean?
So it's actually the only and first real alternative to replacement. We actually just got our patent. We actually got 2 patents on the product recently. So essentially what happens on a roof is, you're a flipper, right? So the stuff, the granules get into the gutters and, you lose all the granules on these asphalt shingle roofs.
Just so we're clear, because I actually don't know. What is a granule?
Okay.
Because I'm not super involved in construction. I'm like, just replace the roof.
Makes sense. All right. So, okay, well, let me explain. So basically on an asphalt shingled roof, there's these granules that are stamped into the asphalt in the manufacturing process.
What is a granule?
So a granule is like a little rock.
Okay, got
it's
it.
those little rocks that create the color, and that actually what protects the roof.
Got it.
So what ends up happening is those granules end up shedding. They end up in your gutters or around your house.
Okay.
That exposes the asphalt underneath that granule, and that's what causes roofs to crack, deteriorate, and need to be changed. It also causes them to crack under hail resistance. What we've done is we've actually taken those granules, enveloped them in a resin, and we're able to spray those back on site. So we're actually prolonging the life of the roof, but actually reinforcing it at the same time.
Wow. So you're spraying it basically to put that coat back on to what was originally there of granules,
right?
Essentially. And then you could change the color if you want to make it more modern and whatever else.
And it won't look painted because it's a combination of granules the same way that you would have on a regular roof. So it doesn't look repainted, and it actually reinforces the roof because we're adding another layer on top of the existing granules.
How much does something like that cost, out of curiosity?
So typically we compare it to the cost of replacement. We're usually about 35 to 40% the cost of replacement, but it's done in a day, no mess, for a fraction of the cost, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
So you don't need to do replacements. It will look better, and it's quicker.
Yep, no brainer.
Okay.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, I've never heard of it. You're the first person to tell me about something like that, but I mean, obviously, that could extend the life of a roof significantly.
Well, I'm the first person because we actually invented it. We've got 2 patents on it. There's a whole bunch of roof sealers and rejuvenators that exist and coatings. This is none of that. This is really a true alternative to replacement.
Yeah. That's awesome. So that only works on shingle roofs. So it wouldn't work on tile and stuff like that.
No, it could work on clay roofs, but you get that granular look though. You wouldn't get an even look like you have on regular clay.
Could you just spray it normally? I guess.
You mean
if you wanted to change the color of, it's like a red roof and you wanted to go more modern.
You could, yeah, you could.
Got it.
Yeah, you could, but it would add a layer of granules. It would actually reinforce it, so it increases impact resistance and wind resistance on the roof.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the rest of your guys' services are essentially what's different, I guess, about what you're doing on a door or something versus I don't know, if I'm just going to go paint the door normally or
Yeah.
paint the exterior of the house normally.
Yeah, good question. So I actually started by doing that. So I was actually a student painting franchisee, and I became obsessed with how do I get this perfect finish on a front door. Bought all these different kinds of products. I bought flow modifiers, you name it, I tried it. The issue was I'd paint a front door, and 2 weeks later, a customer would call me and be like, "I'm really sorry, my kid scratched the door with his school bag." I'm like, "Man, okay, no problem, I'll come fix it." But it kept happening, right? Because these products are made to kind of just latex products are made to change the color, but not necessarily to be durable on these specific surfaces. So what I did is I went to a factory and said, how do you paint these doors in a factory? Why do they last forever? And we tried to use those products on site. The issue with that is they dry way too fast and they cracked. So I actually started learning about paint formulation, met a few chemists, and we said, well, what if we can slow these down or speed these up, the dry time of this stuff, to be able to apply this on site? And we started creating our own custom chemistry for it. And that's actually our first patent. So we weather adjust these products on site. So not only are they customized for the substrate, they're customized for the weather too. And that's really the secret sauce is it allows us to have something that's the right gloss, the right hardness, all the properties that we need, but we can actually apply it on site with it actually technically coalescing properly. That's what happens when you don't apply products in the right temperatures.
So I guess you guys are, and I don't want to like oversimplify it, but at least when it comes to those, like a true high-end custom paint.
Pretty much, yeah, pretty much. It's completely customized for each surface that we do. So we've got a coating for aluminum siding, for vinyl siding. We actually have a patent on vinyl, on our vinyl coating. We have one for soffits, we have one for cabinets. So we've got custom chemistry for each surface that we apply.
Got it.
Yeah.
So the pitch is really with those, it's going to be more durable. I'm sure it probably looks cleaner, looks better.
It looks brand new, and we give a 15-year no-peel warranty. So
15-year no peel.
yeah, so it will not peel. Like if you get a brand new door or window.
How is it sticking so good?
Well, that's
Like that's as a guy who's painted many things and seen it peel and whatever.
well, I used to be where you are. So the secret really is, I spoke about our patent is, so at a technical level, everybody knows you have to prep a surface properly, right? You got to clean it, and that's basic paint 101, right?
Yep.
But then the other issue that people don't realize is there's two other pieces for adhesion. So there's the prep, there's the chemistry, and then there's the application temperature. Now, we obviously have thorough prep. We've got a process around that, but we control the chemistry and the application temperature. So for example, if a vinyl window requires a certain product to adhere, we will have a custom chemistry for that, but then it needs to coalesce. So at a technical level, it needs to come together. The paint film needs to come together. And if you don't have the ideal dry conditions for that, that won't happen. So that's our patent is we actually add chemicals on site to be able to either slow down or speed up the dry time so that all three of those pieces happen in unison.
That's crazy. Okay.
Yeah.
Next question I have is, as a flipper, is what is the cost difference? Because it's got to cost more if it's that much better.
Well, that's the beauty of it because our whole slogan is formulation to application. We're like 15 to 20% more than a regular painter.
So not much.
Not much, no brainer. And a lot of the surfaces that we do, regular painters don't even really do.
Yeah.
So for example, they won't touch vinyl. They won't touch vinyl windows.
Yeah, they probably won't touch bricks and things like that.
Exactly.
So they can't even do it.
Yeah.
How do people find you guys?
Yeah.
Like, because if I'm just searching to paint my door, like how do you guys end up popping up? Because you have, you said you have 120 franchises sold so far.
Yeah.
I don't know how many are like active and running, but like how do people even realize that you guys are available?
Well, that's actually our biggest challenge, right? Is awareness play. So for a new franchise that's launching, we've got a whole launch marketing campaign that we do for them. But basically, initially, we market ourselves as conventional painters, right? Like, same keywords through AdWords, Facebook. We've got ads on.
Well, you guys do just normal paint jobs too?
We don't.
Oh, you don't?
No,
Okay.
we don't. We actually refer those to painters. So really for us, it's about networking. But like, for example, if you're looking to do something on your exterior siding, right? So we'll rank, we'll use those keywords. And then we just want to get our foot in the door. Because once we get our foot in the door and we explain to customers what this is, we sell it almost all the time. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
But the awareness is key
It's
here.
challenging because it's like a new thing.
But it snowballs like crazy. Dude, we've done 13 houses on the street. Once like a neighbor does and they're like, wow, this is real, this actually happens, then like we just keep doing every house on the street.
Wow.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit. I understand the product. It's awesome. And then, if somebody's listening to this and they want to do that, in their market, where would they find out where you guys are located right now?
Spraynet.com. We have a location page.
Okay.
We've got quite a few locations across both Canada and the US.
Okay. And because you're based out in Montreal.
Well, we have an office in Montreal and an office in Florida.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
And so, spraynet.com does that. And then, I want to talk to you about the business side of things. Yep. So obviously that's what you guys do. you are the one who invented this stuff like 15 years ago or so, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, different timelines for different products, but yeah, we've got a team of chemists too,
Yeah.
not just myself. Yeah,
Yeah. But you're the founder of the company.
I am. Yeah.
And what was the journey like founding the company? What led you to franchising, and now at this point, like, I just want to hear like the entrepreneurial journey.
So 2010 is when we started just spraying. We figured spraying would be the innovation. We realized, yeah, you get a better finish, but you don't get all the properties that you want out of the paint. So in 2012, we actually started making our own product, really to take it to the next level. And from there, like we went from 300,000 in sales to 3 million in less than 3 years. And this was in 5 months because we didn't used to do cabinets or anything like that. We used to just work seasonally. So like it just grew really, really quickly. So I figured we were on to something. The story I like to tell is I was spraying a house on a ladder, phone to my ear, customer wanting something. And I was basically the call center. I was, the marketing team, the sales team. I was everything. So anyways, not sustainable. At that point, we were 50 people. And I took that off season to read the E-Myth Revisited. And it spoke about franchising. I said, well, I used to be a franchisee, right? I was a student painter, and it was a franchise. And I said, well, what if I turn this into a franchise? So in 2014, that winter, actually, I started documenting everything, started creating, manuals, whatnot. In 2014, we actually awarded 2 franchises, 2 hours east of us, 2 hours west of us. And their first year, they both killed it. So I said, okay, well, I think we're onto something. And that's really how the journey began. Yeah.
So how did it expand?
So in 2016, we were actually on Dragon's Den. So that's the, I don't know if you're familiar.
That's like the Shark Tank of Canada.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So we actually made history on the show. So I pitched, and within 5 minutes, I got a deal from almost everybody. And then, so I actually went in at 5%, and then nobody had ever done a deal under 15%. And
What'd you come in valuation wise?
oh, this was a long time. It was, I think, 3.5 million.
Okay, so you wanted to sell 5% of 3.5 million.
It was like 175 grand. It was like, I kind of went on thinking like nobody's going to do this deal, right? Because everyone does 15% plus deals.
Yeah.
And I got the deal done. So we made history on the show. We were in every outlet in Canada. So we got so much traffic to our website. Microsoft shut off our servers. I'm not even joking. We couldn't even access our website.
Wow.
So people were asking for franchises through our Facebook page. So I actually had one person send me, shut up and take my money, which was amazing. So anyways, so we sold out the entire country within 24 hours. Well, not within 24 hours. We got 1,200 franchise requests within 24 hours. And then our team kind of like vetted, and we basically sold out that whole country in 2016.
All of Canada.
All of Canada. So
that's crazy.
So yeah, from 2 locations to an entire country, we had a lot to learn. So 2016 to 2018 was like a learning, like, okay, how do we become a real franchisor now? Because we've got franchisees.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And we were just an operator at that point.
So really, you didn't expect that it was going to grow that quick, because Dragon's Den just really put fire to it.
It was nuts. Like it was like literally history on the show. Like they'd never done a deal like that. So like, and not only did it help us sell franchises, but people wanted jobs across the country too. Like they wanted jobs done. So it just helped launch those franchisees quicker.
Yeah, they had
too.
demand.
Yeah, it was just nuts.
I mean, that was 9 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, are they still involved at all to this day? Like, how's that work?
No, so I actually didn't do the deal after the show.
Oh.
Yeah, it was just like we shook hands. And then, after the show, we went back and forth a few times, and I was like, man, like 5%, like this is just, it's
What's
too,
the point?
Yeah, it was too much due diligence for 5%. I was like, like it was great. The show got us, and they wished me best of luck. But no, we never actually ended up doing the deal.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you got all the exposure without having to do the deal.
Yeah, exactly. So win-win.
Yeah, that was a win.
Yeah.
That's what they always say about Shark Tank and Dragon's Den. It's like very few actually happen.
I think it's like 10% of deals actually happen after the show.
Yeah, because they got to actually do the due diligence and see if they want to do it. And
yeah. And I would assume people also embellish their businesses on TV, right? So like a lot of stuff they say on TV is not real. So yeah.
How much of it do you think is just the sharks, or do they call them the dragons over there?
Yeah, I call them dragons.
How much do they just the dragons in them just not really want to do the deals, do you think?
Good question. Actually, well, I'm sure like when they look through the deals and if they're quote unquote lying on TV, I'm sure they don't. So actually, Kevin O'Leary and Robert Herjavec started on Dragon's Den. So I know
Are they both Canadian?
Yeah, they're both Canadian.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. 2 of the 5 Shark Tank sharks are Canadian. Yeah.
Okay. So they started out over there. Yeah, because Kevin had like an education platform. Like I think
so.
that was his background.
Yeah.
Okay, so you start franchising like crazy.
Yeah,
I'm sure that was chaos.
mess.
Like, how did you guys get through it?
Like what a mess. And I'll tell the story because I tell it all the time. But so just to give you context, we had two franchisees at that point, and my training was basically like in a room not bigger than this. And I was like, got any questions? Like, I didn't know how to be a franchisor. Right? I knew how to operate the business. They
Right.
called me if they had any questions. So now we've got like all these new franchisees expecting like, a serious onboarding and support. And I didn't even have support staff. Like all of my team was running our corporate territories. So that was such a mess because what ended up happening is I had to purge all of our corporate territories, our best guys, our best team leads to support our franchisees. But that was our cash cow funding the franchise business. So that led to like a moment of, all right, well, pretty much we're gonna have closed doors. we can talk more about that if you want, but yeah, learning how to be a franchisor, we can get more into it. But the path was really purge all of our corporate staff to train our franchisees, and then really we started learning. As of 2019, we really got our shit together, if
Yeah.
you will, as a franchisor. And yeah.
So what did you mean by you have to close your doors? Like, what happened?
So our corporate territories was our cash cow. We were doing $3+ million a year, in 5 months. So we were just doing exteriors back then, like great margins, and that's what allowed us to fund.
Because you guys are in Canada, so you can't do it year round.
Right, the exterior stuff was literally like from May to October.
Right.
So like you can imagine, $3 million worth back then. We did 1,100 jobs in 5 months.
Wow.
Like it was nuts. Anyways, so I had good teams, right? Like we were, I think, almost 60 people back then. But then when we started franchising, all the franchisees, I didn't realize how much help they would have needed, right? Like these people are not even from, they're not even from the home service space. They're just like people that are like, oh, I don't want my job anymore.
They're just people that got money that want to do this.
Yeah, exactly. I want to quit my job and do this. So like the amount of support that we needed, I ended up taking our best sales guys out, our best production managers out of our corporate territories to go help them launch their businesses. And what do you think happened to our business? Like we still did, our revenue tanked by like 30%. And like I remember, I'll always remember this day. My bookkeeper came up to me and it was July. And like normally August is when we started like breaking even and started, getting in the money. And she's like, what's happening? Because like I don't know if we're gonna make payroll. I'm like, what do you mean we're not gonna make payroll? She's like, well, we're in the hole, like almost $1 million.
Whoa.
I'm like, what? How? Like I was just so involved with everything going on that I just completely lost sight of it. And I was like, this can't be real. Like it's obviously a mistake. So then I go to my accountant. He's like, no. He's like, you got a real problem here.
Yeah, you
Holy
have no
crap.
money. Yeah.
Yeah, no money and like full on line of credit, like maxed out everything.
Yeah.
I was like, holy crap. So yeah, that was let's just say it took us 2 years to kind of get back on track.
Well, let's talk about this because I think it's really important, and I've been through it many times. And especially, for me, it happened when the real estate market changed in 2022. I had like 50 house flips going on, and the market turns. And what are you going to do? You're just bleeding cash every month because houses aren't selling.
Right.
You're making interest payments. You're making payrolls. Then you're selling at a loss. So now you got to actually come to the table with money to close deals. And so that was a brutal time for me where I lost millions. And, we were able to make payroll and, everything kept moving because I had savings and reserves and other things. But man, dude, I'm still like facing consequences from it, even after a couple of years, right?
Yep.
And, it's forced me to get a lot better, but it also forced me to realize like, man, okay, here's a lot of problems you had in the business that you're just were unaware of when, you're selling a lot and when things are good and when the economy's good and, all this stuff. But man, it was like a really, really brutal time. And people don't talk about it because it's like those times either make you or break you. There's no in between.
Yeah. It was a buddy of mine actually speaking to him because like, also you know this, right? Like when you're at the top, like who do you even talk to? So I was just speaking to a fellow entrepreneur and he's like, he told me something that gave me good perspective. He's like, did you ever think you'd be in a position to be able to lose $1 million and still keep going? I'm like, that's great perspective, right? Because like as entrepreneurs, we always dream of like having these big businesses and stuff like that. And honestly, like that kind of turned things for me. And we never missed payroll ever in the 15 years that I've been running the company. But I actually turned to real estate, and it's funny because obviously your show's about real estate. I had built a house, a luxury home that I was going to flip. So I know a
Yeah.
thing or two about flipping. And I actually was able to remortgage that house to re-inject into the business. And that real estate is actually what saved the business, because I actually own also the building that we were in and another building that I had. So I had bought in two buildings, two industrial buildings when I was younger. And that's what ended up saving the business. I was able to remortgage all of that, throw it into the business,
Yep.
and keep going. So real estate was was actually a real game changer and saver for me.
Yeah. Yeah. That was part of me too. It's like I had a bunch of rentals and things. And I always tell people like rentals for me aren't really about the cash flow. They're about, the tax write-offs, the appreciation, all that stuff. And so, I'd been accumulating all these rentals, and then, when things hit the fan, I started selling off some of them, and that gave me the cash I needed to keep going.
Yeah, yeah. People are always like, well, is your primary residence an investment? And I was like, well, it depends how you look at it. So for me, it was. So I had built this luxury home that I knew that I was going to sell at some point, but I was able to get a line of credit on it to fund the business. And now I did it again. So I'm on my second one now, and that's what's funding our growth right now, right?
Yeah.
So yes, it's a cool place to live, but you also get the fact that you can leverage, the equity on that house to fuel the growth of the business. Because everybody asks, did you have investors or whatnot? How'd you bootstrap it? That's really how I did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you said 2019, you really started to kind of figure it out, dig yourself out of this hole.
Yeah.
Like, what were the things you had to do to get out of it?
Well, first and foremost, we had to recognize that we were no longer an operator, we were a franchisor. And I think it's a big distinction, because I have so many friends like that operate a business like, hey, can you help me franchise this? I'm like, dude, franchising is an entirely different business in and of itself. First of all, it's a huge investment, but you have to consciously and actively become a franchisor. So what that means is, all right, now we need an onboarding program, we need field coaches, we need an LMS, obviously. Like we need a marketing team to help these franchisees get off the ground. So there was so much stuff that we learned, and we actually ended up selling off some of our corporate territories. So we went from 3 million to just $500,000, just running a territory so we can test new things. But we really shifted the business to become a franchisor rather than an operator at that point. So and there's so much.
And how was that like, basically taking a cash cow away to saying, hey, like this is the thing that's made me money for, all these years, to now saying, look, you know what? I'm going to kind of like sacrifice this for the big picture.
And still today we're doing that, right? We're reinvesting everything, for the big picture. And that's the thing about franchising. I'm glad you brought that up, because, everybody says, I'm going to franchise my business. Cool. Are you good at not making money or losing money for at least maybe 7, even 10 years? Maybe less, but most franchise. So it's less than 10% of all franchisors actually make it to over 100 units in less than 10 years. So that's a very small percentage of franchisors, right? So and typically 100 units is where you start to break even as a franchisor. And there's millions of investment that you got to pour into it first, right? There's staff, there's trainings, there's franchise marketing. So it's a long, arduous process.
Yeah.
Yeah, to become a franchisor.
Yeah, I've heard about it. Lots of different things, and even like people look at the big franchise fees, and a lot of it is, well, if you pay these brokers, they're taking the majority of it. Yeah. If you do that, then you don't meet like basically the debt requirements to be able to do certain things. And so like, yeah, I've looked a lot throughout it, like or the P&L or the balance sheet requirements that certain states have.
Right. Oh, to become a franchisor or a franchisee? Yeah.
Well, the franchisor has to keep a certain amount of cash and balance sheet.
Exactly. Yeah. California has regulations. There's a whole bunch of registration states for that. Yeah. Exactly. There's so much which makes sense, right? Because they don't, you don't want to invest in their franchise and the franchisor goes belly up.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot to it, a lot more than people realize, I think. Generally, it's not just flip the switch and I'm a franchisor now.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, I just want to actually address something, because you mentioned the franchise fee. Honestly, that hasn't been an issue for us for franchisees to pay that franchise fee. Like our mission is, this sounds a bit cliche, but it's to deliver value, right? Like to our homeowners through like this different service and ROI, but also to franchisees. And whenever I do these intro calls with franchisees, I always talk about our mission is to create value, but look at all this value that you're getting for a simple franchise fee, right? Like 150 million in sales. We spent probably close to 30 million now on marketing over the years. Like there's all this experience. We spend $5 million on patents and R&Ds. You get all of that plus the collective experience of all these other brains here for like a simple franchise fee. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, 100%.
My opinion, obviously.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I mean,
biased,
look,
but
I mean, the reality is when you're deciding to become an entrepreneur, you have multiple choices, right? You can just try and take one of your passions and figure it out.
Yeah.
Odds are you're going to fail. 4 out of 5 small businesses fail. And it just is what it is.
Right.
And, it's like, all right, that's one path. A second path is you can buy a franchise, a proven system. And, if they already have a brand and recognition and all these things, then, you're going to have to pay for it. They
Right.
spent tons of money to build that infrastructure, right? Or, maybe you go the in-between, which is kind of where I'm at, where it's like, hey,
Yeah.
we're going to teach you how to start a real estate investing business.
Right.
Now, you don't have to use, our name, and we're not going to take a percentage from you, and, but you're still going to have to pay us to teach you how to do it.
Yeah, makes
We're
sense.
still going to give you tools and all this stuff. So, there's multiple paths to becoming an entrepreneur. You just got to pick like which one you think fits you best.
Yeah, it makes sense. And like, so the word entrepreneur is used like quite a bit loosely. Like we're actually looking for franchisees, not necessarily someone who wants to create or, create something new. Like we're looking for more for like an entrepreneur, right? Like
Yeah.
take what we've have and leverage it and go and run with it and build a team and, build your empire without having to think of, the chemistry or, the marketing creatives or any of that stuff. And people like doing that. Like people like building teams and operating a business. So like there's, like you said, there's many different paths. And,
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not right for everyone. Like we flat out tell people like, we're trying to be as selective as possible. We sometimes tell people like, hey man, like, I don't know if franchising is the right avenue for you, right? Like it's, you may want to start your own thing, and it makes sense sometimes to start your own thing.
Yeah. I forgot who was telling me that, but maybe it was Jeff.
Yeah.
And it was like, yeah, we actually don't really like the entrepreneurs too much. And I'm like, why? He's like, well, they don't listen. Like they think they can do it better. They think they can, they want to do this thing a certain way or change that thing. And we just want people who are going to follow the process.
Well, that's the whole point. And so I was a horrible franchisee, right? Like,
Yeah.
so I was a franchisee for 3 years. Actually, so the VP at that student painting franchise now is a VP at SprayNet. He helps our franchisees. And he tells me, he's like, dude, I couldn't get you on a freaking call. Like you weren't taking any of our coaching. He's like, but I was like, I was performing. I was
Yeah.
doing my thing. They call us mavericks in the franchise world. and you don't want too many of those in your system because
No, then there's no consistency
Exactly.
with the brand.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That makes sense. So you said in 2019 you started to figure it out, and then COVID hit. How did that affect you guys?
COVID actually, so I mean, I'm sure you know this, but the home service space just like
Yeah.
boomed. So at first, when everything was shut down, it was obviously we couldn't work, so that was a bit of an issue. But that was only about 2 months. But the demand for our services just became ridiculous. Like we could not keep up, and the issue was we couldn't hire fast enough. Because during COVID, it was very hard to hire. I don't know if you guys had the same issue, but if you wanted to get any home service done on your house during COVID, prices were sky high and delays were super long. And it was the same thing for us. So it actually ended up being pretty good. It also caused a boom in franchise sales just because people were like, everybody wants home services. Let's look for a home service franchise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it was actually ended up being a pretty good thing for us.
Got it.
Yeah.
And then, today, now we're 5 years post-COVID, essentially. You guys have grown to 120, franchises bought.
Yeah.
What's the goal at this point?
Yeah. The goal is 100 million in system-wide sales revenue annually. So we're this year we'll get to, I'm hoping to get to like half to a third of that. Half would be like really good, but I don't think we'll get there this year. We'll definitely surpass a third of that. But we're probably 3 years away from that $100 million goal. And that's always just been our goal it's been years. We have that on the wall, 100 franchisees, 100 million. We want our average franchisee to have $1 million business.
Do you think that that's realistic?
100% realistic. I
Okay.
think we could do better. We haven't even scratched the surface. So
Because I see a lot of these franchises that are, being pitched. And obviously every franchise and market's different. But, you see like, I don't know, Crumble Cookies. They're like, oh, they'll do 200 grand a year, 250 grand a year, and like a McDonald's might do $1 million or a Subway or whatever, right?
So our average franchisees in Canada are doing 1.2, and our U.S. but they're more mature. I think the average now is 6.8 years in Canada.
Yeah, because
And
that's where you first started.
Yeah, and in the U.S. they're like barely 2 years old, but they're outpacing the growth of the Canadian franchisees. So we're gonna have franchisees in the U.S. So typically in Canada it took about 4 to 5 years for them to hit $1 million. Probably gonna in the U.S. be 2 to 3 years. So it'll be faster. But what I was gonna say was in Canada, initially we only did exteriors. We only added kitchens in 2019. So that's what's accelerating the growth down in the US. So now we essentially have 3 businesses in one. We've got the kitchen stuff, we've got the exterior stuff, we've got the roof stuff. Nobody's even started the roof stuff. That could be bigger than
and
all the other
kitchen's a
stuff.
big business.
Kitchen's huge. Like, so closest location to here is Phoenix. They do like 30K of kitchens a week. Like, and
How much
and they
does
can't
it
keep up.
cost to do a kitchen refresh?
So what we do is about their average kitchen in Phoenix is about 6K.
Yeah.
Yeah, give or take 5, 6K.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But the advantage is won't peel, 100% washable, exceeds all KCMA standards, so Kitchen Cabinet Manufacturers Association standards. We actually created custom chemistry for that too. Anyways, I'm not here to pitch that so much, but it's a great business, and like it's a business you could do all year round. Whereas for exteriors,
Exterior has season.
yeah, even in Phoenix, like I mean, they don't do it in the summer because it's like it's too hot.
They just don't want to do it.
Yeah, it's too hot.
We gotta get those guys a little more tough. we do it here in Vegas all day, every day.
Do you? Yeah. Well, actually, so it's actually a women-owned business. It's two women that own the business, and they're actually #1 in the U.S. right now. They're killing it.
Whoa.
Yeah, amazing. They're honestly 2 amazing women. Super cool.
How do you
great.
guys do markets? Like, how many could you have in Phoenix? It's a huge market.
Yeah, Phoenix, you could probably have 3, 4 franchisees.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right now they're alone, just because they're so good. We want to give them the space. But they've asked, can we have a neighboring franchisee at some point? Because it helps you share the marketing costs, home shows and all of that stuff. But man,
That's interesting. They want somebody else.
yeah, often in bigger markets, franchisees want a neighboring franchisee because you can share costs.
And nobody's in Vegas yet.
No, we need somebody in Vegas for sure.
Yeah. Maybe
Yeah.
someone listening.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah.
So speaking of that, like, what are the typical margins, right? If these guys can potentially make $1 million, in a few years revenue wise, like what are they expecting to take?
Yeah, so I'm sure you know this, but franchise laws, I'm not allowed to talk about anything that's outside of our item 19.
Yep.
But this year, our item 19, we just launched it last week. Really what matters is our gross margin is the highest in the industry. We're just shy of 60%. The reason for that is process, chemistry, and it's unique, right? So we're able to charge a little bit more, and we've got a process that we can do a little bit faster, gives us crazy margins.
Yeah. So like even at like the 24.9% EBITDA, I'm sure they're paying themselves a salary and
Right.
stuff too. So
Exactly, yeah.
as an owner operator, I mean, you're making good money. You're
Oh,
making
yeah, you're
multiple
making
6 figures.
Oh yeah, you're making good money for sure. But we actually want our franchisees to start operating less and growing the business
Yeah,
bigger.
for sure.
Yeah.
Like we don't want them in the day to day as
No.
much, but
Yeah.
I mean, do you take the stance of like, I know Chick-fil-A's franchise model is very different,
Yeah.
but like, you make them operate their first one themselves. Do you do anything like that?
100%. So I'm glad that you mentioned that because we tried the whole, and it's a big buzzword in the franchise industry, semi-absentee. Like I can buy this business and keep my job.
Yeah.
We don't do it anymore. Like 80% of those guys close because nobody's actually running the business. So we tell people you got to work in your business before you can work on your business. And I'm sure you know this. I'm sure you'll agree with that. But how can you teach? How can you delegate if you have no idea what you're even talking about at that point? So we want people to learn the business, get their hands dirty so that they can build teams after that. And typically, 18, 24 months, that's when people start, hiring salesperson, hiring a production manager. You hire a team lead from day one. You're not painting from day one, but you do need to learn how to actually operate the business. Otherwise, it just rarely works. There needs to be a driver.
Yeah, I tell that to people too, so like we don't franchise, but we do give people like a business in a box to wholesale, right? So we'll give them leads, softwares, coaching, all that stuff. So kind of like a franchise, but there's no massive upfront fee and there's no residuals.
Yeah, no ongoing.
But with that, I always tell them because like, oh well, because most people have jobs, kind of
Right.
like what you're trying to attract, and
Yeah.
like how much time can I spend on this? And I'm like, well, you got to work. Like this ain't gonna do itself. I tell them like, at a minimum, at least for what we do, yours is gonna be probably a much bigger commitment. But I'm like, you got to put at least 10 hours a week,
Right.
in order to like have any level of success.
Right.
But eventually, and you're going to have to be the one to make the calls and talk to sellers and do the thing.
Yeah.
Like, then you can think about hiring people and, all that stuff. How do you guys approach these people? Because now, like, they're making a much bigger financial commitment. They're doing all these different things. Like, what is their requirements?
You mean in terms of like time requirement?
Yeah.
Full time.
Yeah, they got to be full time.
Full time, full time. We don't beat around the bush around that anymore. We used to. We thought we could make it work. I mean, look, there's anomalies. You can make it work depending on how capitalized you are, and like if you've got a team of people, like if you're in the industry and you've got a team of people, you got a driver that can own. So look, if you don't want to be operating the business full time, you do need a driver, and that driver needs some equity in the game because. We've had it so many times where they hire a manager and then we train the manager.
Manager quits.
Manager quits, and then oh well, I'm not going to do this. Close the doors, and I just don't want any more closures on our books because it just looks bad on us too, right?
Yeah.
So like we're very stringent on that now. Like you got to operate the business full time.
It seems like every franchisor makes that mistake.
Every single one.
Every single one I've ever talked to, they're like, "Yep, we just sold anyone and everyone.
Every single
it was great, and we realized it wasn't great."
Well, it's because a bit of a predicament because you need some franchise fee revenue to kind of fuel your growth. So it's like, well, maybe we can make it work with this guy.
Yeah.
And then at some point you get to the point where your royalty is self-sufficient, where like your royalties can cover your fixed costs. And like, let's be more selective because we don't want to go through that again.
Yep.
Yeah. Because like
that was a headache.
Yeah. Oh, it's such a headache. And it's like short term for, it's always a balance of short term versus long term, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So, these people who want to do it, they got to have money. They've got to go full time.
Yep.
And that's it. And then, they can start with one and eventually do more.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's it. You're still running a business,
right?
Well,
right. That's what I mean. But like I'm saying, those are the pre-qualifications.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we have a pretty arduous selection process. So we go through a process where they meet our team. I do leadership calls actually every 2 weeks. So actually just did one 2 days ago and there was eight buying groups on it, which was great. But I told the Fran Dev team, I'm like, hey, two of the eight, like they don't have my vote. And they're like, yeah, we know 2 people said the same thing. So we also look for value fit. What kind of questions are they asking? How are they approaching this? We want people that when shit hits the fan and it gets hard, we can have reasonable conversations with them. Because some people aren't able to have reasonable conversations. And you see that up front with the questions that they ask.
Yeah, and then you get the blame game.
Yeah, nitpicking and stuff like that. I'm sure you've heard of the transition curve, the entrepreneur transition curve.
Say it. I don't know.
Uninformed optimism, informed pessimism, and then crisis of meaning.
Okay.
Maybe not. So, okay.
No,
so
I haven't.
Okay, let me explain that. So, because we 100% let everybody know it's like, hey, we're in uninformed optimism right now. You want to start a business?
Yeah,
you're
this
excited.
is great.
Yeah, everything's amazing. So everybody says this, right? I'm going to be the rookie of the year and I'm going to be your best franchisee ever. I'm like, great, I hope that happens. But everybody says that when they start, right? Because you're in uninformed optimism. And then you start the business and you're like, whoa, drinking out of fire hose is a lot more than I thought. Marketing starts. You're not as good at sales as you thought you were. We got to bring you a coach. And then you get an informed pessimism. And you're like, whoa, okay, is this for me, right?
Yep.
And then, you're talking to your friends, your father-in-law, or that person that told you you shouldn't have did it, right? And then you start falling down that curve to a crisis of meaning. And that's really where our role as a franchisor is like, all right, now you're at like rock bottom. Like either you close your business, which we obviously don't want you to do, or we get to informed optimism. Let's look at your KPIs. Okay, sales is your issue. Cost per estimate may be your issues. Let's put more money in these places. Let's send a trainer out there to make sure that you increase your sales ratio. Otherwise, your marketing costs can be too high. So that's the whole curve. But when you're in that crisis of meaning, not everybody's able to be reasonable, and if they're not, we can't do anything about it, right?
Right.
So that's really what we're really interviewing for that. What happens when that happens?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many people do you think are so, I guess, because I've dealt with the same thing, people getting into real estate. And so the more, similar to you, the more that you do it, the more I realize like, oh, you know what? I need to like not let anyone and everyone in. And I need to just be fully like letting them know about that, like from the jump, like, hey guys, this is awesome and it's great. And I want you guys to, be excited. Right. I don't want to be the Debbie Downer, because it is a fine line because you don't want to like, if I knew everything,
you wouldn't do it.
I wouldn't do it.
Exactly. You don't want to scare them too much.
Yeah. Like if I knew every little thing about anything I was going to get into in hindsight, I wouldn't have did it.
It's not logical. And so my team actually told me that like, dude, on the leadership calls, tone it down a little bit.
Yeah.
Like relax. Like we, you don't want to kill all their excitement either.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like you talk to this seasoned entrepreneur of like 50 years and he's like, yeah. He's just like, he's been through wars.
You see in his eyes, like
Yeah.
his soul's been sucked out of
Yeah,
him, right?
you're like, dude, like I don't want to be like that guy.
Right, exactly.
So,
Yeah.
I think there's a balancing, but that goes back to knowing how to coach them in each stage.
Yeah. And explaining those stages to them before, because you have no idea how many times 18 or 24 months in, like I'll have a call with a franchisee, I do a round of courtesy calls or seeing like convention or whatnot. And they're like, I always think of that transition curve and I know where I'm at. And I'm so glad that you showed that to us at the beginning, because otherwise I wouldn't know if this is normal or not, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's about being
100%.
aware.
So, now you guys are at this point. You've been established. You got great products. You're expanding your products essentially to give them more revenue opportunities, more reasons for people to get in and then be cross-sold, different things too. So I guess the question is, how do you break through to the next level? Like, how do you start scaling? Like, it's like, man, why don't you have somebody in Vegas? This is a massive real estate market.
It's crazy we don't. It's crazy we don't.
How does that change? How do you start getting the word out better?
So we're finally at the point. So we're adding about 2 locations a month. So we'll add between 25 and 30 new franchisees this year, and that's kind of the pace that we want to be at, because
you don't want to sell too quicker.
No,
sell too
and
much.
we're being like really selective. Like we could sell more. We could sell more, but we've been burnt so much in the past that like we're being sometimes I think excessively selective, but I prefer that than closing locations. So we had about 2 locations a month. We're going to have one in Vegas in the next 12 months for sure. But I think adding 20 to 30 locations a month is a good pace for us. A year
Yeah.
is a good pace for us, because look, that'll double this business in 2 years, 3 years, and it'll get us to that 100 million, because that's the amount of franchisees that we need. So we'll be at about, because we've got locations. So there's, in franchising, everybody talks about units. So we've got 130 something units now, but we've only got about 70 franchisees, because some of them have more than one.
Yep.
So we can double the amount of franchisees by adding, 20, 30 a year in the next 2 to 3 years, and that'll absolutely get us past that $100 million mark.
Yeah. How long does it typically take to like get it going?
Yeah, so we have a onboarding quarterly, just because we like to have classes of about 6 to 8 new franchisees. We're actually starting one this month. Usually we want our main metric, our main KPI is signing 50K in their first 6 weeks. So that's what we really focus on doing, is in their first 6 weeks, we're training them, we're turning on their marketing, and then we're making sure that they're signing 50K. Because we know that when they sign 50K, those jobs create jobs, and then it starts the business properly.
Okay, so this is actually a good distinction that I don't think you talked about, but to me is important. When you start most kinds of franchises, like I was mentioning earlier, like a Crumble or a whatever, right? You have to, go get a building. You got to build it out. That's why I was like, those things can take a year plus before they're actually operating.
We like you can sign. We've had a franchisee sign on the Thursday and start training on Monday, just because we're like, hey, dude, if you want.
So you don't need a location.
No, you start right away. Yeah.
And then, where's the equipment and stuff?
So we take care of that. So during training, we put
It's
all
all
that
mobile.
together. Yeah, I'll put that together. It's all shipped to the franchisees. It's relatively turnkey at this point, right? We've done it quite a few times.
So do those 2 girls in Phoenix like do the jobs themselves, or how does that work?
No, they don't. They've got a crew. They've got a crew of 5. So they typically do networking and sales. I know Teresa, one of them, she likes to get in there sometimes. So she does help the crew once in a while. Right now they have a ridiculous backlog. Like there's a waiting list for 3 months to get a kitchen done. So she's getting in there.
She needs more crews.
Yeah, she's more crew. She needs to hire. But no, the goal is for the franchisee not to do the work.
No, I know.
And scale a bit. But sometimes you have to, right? Like,
Yeah.
you got to get your hands dirty once in a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's like, to me, the biggest benefit of it is like speed to implementation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas other franchises are not like, most franchises aren't.
Most are not, but home service is typically like, you'll be relatively quick, because most don't require a location in year one. Eventually, as we scale, most of our franchisees get offices, just because, once you've got like 10 trucks and, you got crews and inventory, but that usually happens in year 2 or 3.
Yeah, you don't need it right away.
No, not right away.
Just make money.
Yeah, exactly. Break even, make money, cash flow, and then let's go.
Yeah, that all makes sense. I mean, for you, what's the big plan? I mean, is it to exit? Is it to go public? Is it to like what's the whole point of all of it?
That was the whole point.
Yeah, like I mean, there's a reason. Obviously, like you know, you got to work and do stuff and
Yeah.
you know make money. But usually, franchise guys want to sell the business.
Yeah, well, especially in home services, there's been like PE has been all around home service. You know, I get the question all the time. I want to scale this business quick, and I want to make sure that the franchisees get, you know, a really good ROI on their business. Now, it sounds like a sales pitch, but that's the reality for me because a lot of them invested in me to a certain extent, right? Like it's funny. I get on leadership calls, and I've never spoken to these people, but they feel like they know me because they watch all my videos online.
Yeah,
and like to a certain extent, they believe in me and the vision for the company. So like, you know, an exit maybe potentially at some point, but only when it makes sense. Like only when I feel that it would be better for the franchisees. But we also have like an employee share ownership program. So it'd be nice also like, and that's also the reason why I hesitate. Cause I could sell at this point and it'd be good, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, I wouldn't have to work necessarily, but we have an employee share ownership program. And I'd like for everybody to make a nice check, right? Like I'd like for us to hit that goal and like everybody gets like a really good check.
Yeah.
So I've left aside a portion of the company for our team.
yeah,
Yeah. Cause I mean, they've obviously helped build the business, right?
yeah.
I can't do it alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with that, you know, I think like you just think about all this time. You said it before, like, hey, if you wanted to be a franchisor, you plan to like not make money for a long time because you got to keep reinvesting back into growth and
Yeah.
you know,
And,
all these things.
and so many people like they'll start a business and like the business is barely doing $1 million. They're like, oh, I'm going to be a franchisor now. Dude, like figure out how to grow your business first. Cause if you can't grow yours, how are franchisees going to grow theirs? Right.
Yeah.
And then there's that. And then you need that business to cash flow so you can invest in franchising because it's not cheap, right? Like even just the legal documentations is tens of thousands of dollars, right? Like, and that's the basics.
Yeah.
So yeah, people don't realize and you need to hire coaches. Like there's a lot to it.
I mean, for you, right? I mean, you're entering year 15 of all of this. At what point has it really started to pay off, I guess, in your personal life? Because I know you're reinvesting so much back in. So it's like,
Yeah,
at what
well,
point?
you know, had we not had that hiccup from 2016 to 2019, it would have. So I often joke, I'm like, I used to be rich when I just had a location.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
man, we were printing money at that point. And like, you know, we'll hit royalty self-sufficiency hopefully this year. So that's like break even. Yeah, we'll cash flow at this point. But you know, obviously I take a salary and all of that, but like I'm not pulling dividends. Like I'm still reinvesting in the business at this point.
Yeah.
And it's been a long time, right?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, the business, like people, you know, the business is worth a lot, but like,
But you don't get
Yeah.
the rewards from it.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
not
Yeah.
realized.
yeah, exactly. Right.
That's what I tell people. So like there's a huge difference between net worth and cash flow. I tell this to people all the time. They're like, Ryan, you know, I want to build this big rental portfolio and stuff. I'm like, that's great.
Yeah.
You'll still be not rich. Like, what do you mean? Like, you know, a millionaire, I'm a multimillionaire net worth. And I'm like, yeah. Do you feel like a millionaire?
Right.
Like, do you live like to me, you know, you're still not really living like a crazy life. You're not, you know, you're still having to pinch pennies and you're still having to like, you know, decide what you can and can't afford. Like, to me, that's not like you haven't made it rich wise.
It's so funny because there's such a big disconnect between like the worth of the business and like the cash flow necessarily. Well, for me personally, right? And like, and my wife says like, you know, stop saying this because like you're out of touch because like we live well. Like, you know,
Yeah.
like we live very, very well. Like,
Yeah.
Like we're good. But like sometimes I feel like, man, like we spend like hundreds of thousands of dollars and stuff, and like we do millions in sales, right? So it's like the cash inflows and outflows in millions of dollars some months, and it's like, and then I'm like, let's not go to Vegas with the family because it might cost 10, 15K, and I'm like, man, like we don't even think twice about blinking about 10, 15K in the business, and then like personally, I'm like, I don't know if we can do it. Like, and it's like it's just the disconnect is so large, and like you know, people don't realize that.
Yeah, and that's why I want to like point it out because people don't, and I know tons of. You know, because like, here's the thing. I know people. So to do both is hard. This is what I'm going to get at. I don't want to say it's easy, but I would say most people lean towards one of the two ends. So it's like you have leaned towards building long-term wealth. Right? And so people who buy rentals also lean that way. The trade-off is when that's the only objective is like throughout that, like it's delayed gratification, essentially, right? Then you have those who lean towards cash. And so they do, flipping houses can be that way, Lots of other things can be this way where, dude, you can take home, 7 figures a year. I mean, you're taking home 7 figures a year.
Yeah.
You're making, dude, you can do what you want.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And like those people, they live great lifestyles. They kill it. They look, they're the people you see on social media. And then, but then they also get criticized. Like, what do they own? What do their long-term look like?
Yeah.
And it's like, I get it. They get criticized more, and this person gets maybe put on a higher pedestal. But I look at it and I'm like, I don't know. They both have pros and cons.
They do.
I know plenty of these people, and like these people are having a good time, man. They're enjoying life. And what's the point of money, when it's all said and done? And like, to me, it's like the true thing is both. Can you get both? Can you figure out how to cash flow and make good money to live the life you want, now, not 10 years from now, 20 years from now, now, but then still also be building long-term wealth.
And it's funny because I've had this exact same conversation with somebody, and it's like, how do you balance short-term versus long-term delayed gratification? I'm at the point where I was always the young entrepreneur. I'm not young anymore, right? I'm
how old are you now?
I'm 38.
Yeah, I'm 36.
So what I mean? And this is kind of personal, but it ties into it. So I'll give the context. My father passed away when he was 39. And I'm sure he was also thinking oh, I'm
long term.
I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do, and then you're just not there anymore.
Yep.
And you start to think how long am I going to delay this gratification? Right?
Exactly.
Right. And it's but again, I live well. There's a balance. I'm not not on the street. But yeah, it's how long do you delay it?
Well, you see, especially people who raise capital, like these founders of companies that raise capital.
Yeah.
I mean, they literally are broke personally.
Yeah.
Their company on paper's worth tens of millions of dollars, and they've raised money at this valuation. It's like they're struggling every day, they're grinding. And I always say, I'm like, I mean, this person literally if it works, then they're going to get a big pop when they sell.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, it was all for nothing.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. And so that's why we're at the point now, because you asked about an exit, and I said not an exit, but we're at the point now where we are looking potentially for minority growth investment.
Yeah.
Just because I keep pumping to grow faster.
Yep.
But if we can do a minority growth investment, I can take a little bit of liquidity out.
Yep.
And not have to be
all in.
Yeah, all in all the time.
Yep.
And at the same time, the business gets this capital injection where we can maybe even do it a little bit faster. So we're actually in the process of doing that right now.
So I interviewed one of my friends. His name's Brian Moran. You guys should check the episode out. But he sold a piece of his company for $100 million. So he sold a piece of his company for $100 million. And up to that point, he was like, yeah, dude, I mean, every dollar was going back into the business, and we were valued at so much money. And so, they're talking to venture capital, and, they want to build $1 billion, company and stuff. And, he got to the point in telling them, he's like, look, I'm here to work hard, and I'm not leaving and anything else, but dude, I need to take some chips off the table, we're not, if I'm going to sell a piece of this, I need to get a piece for me that I know my family's good for a long time. And I'll still commit. I'm not going to go retire.
Yeah.
Because that's one of their big fears is you give somebody too much money, do they lose the incentive to keep growing it?
They say founders call in rich.
Yeah.
So calling in sick, they just don't show up anymore.
Yeah.
So that's why they don't want you to take too much chips off the table. But you're right. But for me also, I don't even want to take that much off the table because I know that the business will be worth 5x in 3 years. So I actually don't want to take too much off the table, but a little bit, just so that you can have some breathing room, right? Because it also allows you to have more clarity and make better decisions too.
Yeah, you're not always playing with your back against the wall.
Yeah, right. And also I don't know if you've got kids, but I've got 4 kids.
I got 3 and a 4th on the way.
Nice, 4 each.
Yep.
Yeah, so same thing, right? So I've got 4 kids, and it's man, I want to make sure they're okay too. I also want to have a good time. I don't want to be stressed all the time. So I think we're at the point where especially. I never would have thought this, but I guess with my whole father passing away when I was young, at this age, I'm getting to that same age, and it's you start to think about things differently a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, this is my mindset, and I'm not, and I'm only 36, so it's not like I'm this old wise guy, okay? But here's what I can say. In my early mid 20s, I didn't have any money.
Yeah.
I lived super frugal. I was playing minor league baseball, making no money, wasn't a successful entrepreneur yet, nothing. I started making money, like real money, in my late 20s, multiple six figures a year. Started making 7 figures a year by the time I was 30, taken home to me. And, I'll tell you, I don't regret not investing every single dollar of it. Like, I enjoy living a cool life.
Right.
And it's great. And like, yeah, could I have more rental properties and like be more frugal? For sure. But like, why?
You look happy.
Yeah. Like, what's the point? That's what I'm saying. And I just think people are too extreme on either side. I think everyone needs to have a more balanced approach. Yeah. Because it's like, if you're the ultra frugal guy who never enjoys life and, you'll get to your 40s and 50 and you're like, dang, dude, like I should have spent more on experiences. I should have went to Vegas. I should have.
Right. Yeah.
100%. They always say that, right? I shouldn't have worked as much. And then on the other side, right? If somebody is just always spending all their money and they have no savings, they have no assets, they're like, dang, dude, I should have probably invest more. So I just think the truth lies in between.
Right. Yeah. And like, look, a bit of context, because again, my wife always tells me like, relax, don't tell people that we're we're poor, because we're obviously not. Like, I mean, got a great house, got all the cars we need, got everything we need. It's just, I always feel like, oh, should we take a family vacation? And I just don't want to have to feel that way anymore, because I feel like,
and you shouldn't with what you built. That's the point.
Like, I worked like an animal for like 15 years. And I can't, like, I have to think twice about a family vacation. It's just like the disconnect is not like, it's just,
it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's not adding up anymore. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
And it may not be a $10,000 vacation, but it could just be like, for anyone listening to this, it's like, man, I don't know if I can take the $2,000 vacation because, I got this, I gotta work more, and I don't know if I can do it. Right. And, we got a bunch of bills coming up with these properties and the business. And I'm like, yeah, it's like at some point the business has now become the liability.
Right. Yeah.
It was supposed to be the thing. And you actually said this earlier, and I think this is an important thing for people to realize, and I'm even realizing it. It's like you can build a really nice life owning one business, like a franchise, right?
Amazing, yeah.
And you can make, few $100,000 a year net take home, and like way less stress, way less headaches, and you're chilling.
Dude, and I know this is like a shameless plug for franchising, but you don't have to do any of the back end stuff. It's amazing. Like, you don't have to think about the marketing. You don't have to think, like, you don't have to any of that stuff. Like, I joked earlier, right? Like, when I was operating, we were rich, right? Like,
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, you went from like living really good to then saying, okay, we're going to go big.
Yeah.
And now by going big, things are going to be harder, like more stressful, even more tight financially, because we're going to pour so much of this money into it. And like, you do it and you're like, okay, cool. Like, I'm beating my head against the wall. Okay, I had a breakthrough. Now I'm beating my head against the wall. And then I had a breakthrough. And then, oh man, we're at this whole level of scale. Look at our overhead costs now. Like, how did we get to this point?
Yeah.
I know exactly like what you went through. Like, I've done it a million times. And I find myself on that entrepreneurial valleys, and I'm like, would it be easier to just do this? Would it be easier to just do that? And, you just keep going. And then at some point you're like so far into it, you're like, all right, we're too deep in the game.
But that's the thing is like, and my wife says like, because I was like, we're about 2-3 years away. She's like, you've been saying that for the last 10.
I know. Yeah.
But I'm like, but we really are now. Because like, so context, most franchisors don't get to royalty self-sufficiency, where it means like you've got a real team that you can cover with royalties.
Yeah, and then you got stores actually producing.
Right,
that can
like
pay
we're
you.
there now. So like now's the time where we can scale for real. Like, like we're finally there. It took 10 years, but we're there.
Yeah.
So like, that light at the end of the tunnel, I see it. Like, it's there.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll have me again in 2-3 years and we'll see. But,
Dude, I had Grant Cardone in here. Well, actually, he's been here a couple times, but I was in, where were we at? Orange County. We're in Orange County, Newport. And so we went to his like little villa there, and we were hanging out. And him and Jared were there. And I was talking to Jared. Jared's his right-hand guy. And Jared was like, yeah, we've been doing this a long time now. He's like, it always seems like we're right there about to like have that big thing. And then, it's like, we're always chasing it. Yeah. And obviously they've accomplished a ton, over the last decades.
Right.
And it's just like, yeah, I wonder if that's just always the mentality, like it's just we're always chasing whatever. Because even then, you chase the exit
And
and
then
you
what?
get it.
Yeah.
And then it's like, all right, now what?
I've got buddies who've exited and they're like depressed, right? They're like,
Yeah.
that was my day. Like, what do I do now, right? So I'm not in a rush. Like, I wanna make sure that I know what I'm gonna do. Like, anyways, I'm not in a rush. But the minority growth investment, I think that's the play now.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so raise more money on that front.
Yeah.
Obviously, get more franchisees every month. Get the right franchisees
Yeah, and with a minority growth investment, we can do some cool marketing stuff, like
to get more
overinvest.
franchisees.
Pardon?
To get more franchisees.
Get more franchisees, and also just to launch them quicker too. Like, we could do big brand plays. Like, there's some benefits too. Like, we can redo all. So we built our software from scratch. Now we have to refactor the whole thing. Like, there's a lot of little things that we can do faster.
Yeah.
I mean, it will have a huge impact on the business. Maybe. But honestly, for me, it's just about giving me space. Giving me space to have clarity, but also to be kind. Because when you're always stressed, it's hard to like really be in the moment, listen to somebody, really be kind, be empathetic. Because I'm always like thinking like, oh shit, okay, there's this or there's that, and it's like I want some space to be able to be kind and have some clarity of thought.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the most valuable piece out of all that.
Right.
Yeah.
So if somebody wants to become a franchisee, or even become an investor, where do they go?
Yeah, so I'm assuming there'll be links in the description, but spraynetfranchise.com or spraynet.com. Reach out to us. I mean, you'll be able to get to us somehow. And yeah, we have bi-weekly leadership calls. I host those, answer questions, do Q&A. Those are always a good time. We've got a great franchise development team. We've got a great team overall, actually. And the process, really, how it looks like is from interest to and what we call confirmation day, where they meet the whole team, which is actually kind of cool. It's a virtual on-site thing. They actually also go to job sites of franchisees. They have to speak to franchisees throughout the process.
Yeah.
Anyways, like most franchisors, but yeah, it's kind of just, all right, put in a request. We'll see if you qualify, and then we'll get to know each other, see if it's fit.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So guys, we'll link to those down below. Go check them out. I appreciate you coming on, sharing your journey. I think the innovation of the products is awesome. I actually can't wait for you guys to get a Vegas person because I'd love to see it on just different projects and houses that I've got. So definitely check them out if you're a consumer or somebody who wants to potentially become a franchisee. Other than that, we'll catch you on the next episode. Peace.